explain myself.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of DGXM podcast with Rock and Dea. We are here back again today, bringing you yet another story of an Albanian trailblazer. He hails from Washington, D.C., but his story started out in Korça, Albania, and now he is a leader in one of the top institutions for banking in the world. Actually, it's the World Bank. And he's been able to make a very successful career out of that while still staying true to his roots in a new country, being well connected, and also living life on his own terms, which is really interesting about Ermal Vila. Welcome to the show, Ermal.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you on the show today. I think Rock also was really excited to have someone from a different background like you on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely was excited because I don't know much about the World Bank, so this is going to be it's going to be a cool thing to learn for myself, and including all the followers and supporters and fans too.
So after that introduction, I think for those that don't know, before we go into the details of what this is and who Ermal is, the World Bank is an institution, very briefly, that helps with development funds, with anti-corruption measures, but in general, development and providing an ability for other countries to reach certain development goals through different means and measures. And it's very involved work. So I'll let you handle that explanation, Ermal. But before we go into that, I want to ask, who is Ermal? Where does he come from? Where did his journey begin?
Sounds good. Yes, thank you for those kind words and introduction. So my name is Ermal Vila, as you mentioned, of course. I was born and raised in Albania, in Korça, and then I finished high school there. And then afterwards, I went to Greece for my college education. I went to the American University there, not affiliated with AU here in DC. It's just an American college, like in every country in the world. Did quite well there. The goal was always to, to come to the US for my master's. And it so happened. I applied to a bunch of schools, got in a bunch of them. One especially at Johns Hopkins, where I went. They had a campus in Italy, in Bologna. So I went there for my first year of my master's, took a little break during the summer when it was in Brussels for like an internship, and then came to DC to finish all my master's. And my degree was a double major in development economics. And the goal was always to work in international development, because that was kind of all my entire academic training, college, and especially my grad studies, was about development and economics. So the goal was to work for an international organization, either the UN or the World Bank. So it happened the World Bank was just down the street from where I studied. So built some connections. As it works, our school has quite a wide network there, so it was easy to get some access. Then after graduating, I worked at Hopkins for a little longer, and then I fully transitioned into World Bank. Within the World Bank, I've been there for 10 plus years now. So I've had a different trajectory in terms of the thematic work that I did. I started working on what we call like public-private dialogue, so like bringing the public entities and private ones, to reach kind of development goals in specific countries. And then I transitioned into working with parliaments, so just supporting parliamentary committees in different areas like public financial management or anti-corruption, and then just training members of parliament on different kind of skills and whatnot. And then for the past 5-6 years, I fully transitioned into what we call working in public sector reform and public administration reform.
Okay.
And more specifically on that, I've been working on kind of like the digitalization of government services.
Okay.
So that's kind of like my bread and butter that's been for the past 4 or 5 years. So basically, especially after COVID, as you remember, for an extended period of time, the main point of contact between government and citizens was kind of online, right? And governments, public sector had, different tools of like government portals and ways to communicate and deliver services to citizens. So then we took that and then we just, 10x'd it, all over, different government kind of sectors. So that's what I've been working on, basically, just modernizing and transforming governments in delivering services. And my 2 or 3 biggest projects have been in Albania and now Kosovo. I just got back from Kosovo because we launched together with Prime Minister Kurti. We launched a digital transformation project. It's going to be called Kosovo Digital. So basically, the Prime Minister was there as well, kind of launched the event, and it's like a new era for a new digital era for the government of Kosovo and its citizens. Because when you digitalize and transform kind of governments and government services, you save time, you save money to both citizens and government. So our investment there of about like $20 million will aim to achieve just that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's that's basically who I am, and I can kind of delve into any of those segments later as well.
Did you always know as a kid you were gonna do this? Like even when you were younger, you're like, I
I wanted
wanna.
to ask that question too.
So no, yeah. Our grandfather was a doctor, and so growing up, because I was good in school, I was just told basically that you're gonna become a doctor. You're gonna become a doctor. Realized by like first year of high school, I hated chemistry. I just wasn't. That wasn't it. I was mostly into social sciences. So that's when I realized that I had to break my family's dream of becoming a doctor because
Oh,
I
no.
just didn't have it. But I think, I always been into social sciences, like literature, history has been my favorite subject of all. And then once I got into like more economics and finance, it was natural, the path that I was going to follow. And then I studied diplomacy in college, I'm sorry. So that was basically what pushed me into this more international development area. And I guess it was also tied up to a sense of, or a desire or need to travel the world. And the World Bank just offered that because we're an international organizations, we have offices all over the world. And just to kind of just put a cherry on top, I guess also working in our own country, that was also because I get to go home a lot. I add some value to the team by knowing the country, the economics, language, law. And it's a way to contribute back as well, right? I mean, because as immigrants, we part of the immigrant story is that you accomplish things for yourself, so you realize your full potential, and no country does it better than the US, right? So once you do that, then the second half of the medallion is that you gotta give something back, right? You gotta share, whatever advantages and things that you can offer to the world are, and especially to our own country, given also that our country is, needs it even more.
Yeah, I think us as Albanians, we love to help each other out when we can too. So I think it's in our nature.
Absolutely, and that was the case as well when I first got here. Especially when I was about to graduate, as a non-citizen, the biggest problem was how to stay in the country. And to stay in the country after you graduate, after your visa expires, you have to find a job within like 9 to 12 months.
Mhm.
So you're rushing against time there to stay in the country. And my first source of my source of
You're busy,
you
you're
hear me?
getting work calls on the weekend. You don't have to apologize.
Yeah,
That's
no.
just
Well, I was
corruption
gone for too long.
somewhere.
So I was gonna say I was basically the first kind of place where I went to was Albanians, and so it so happened that the Albanian community in DC is very different from other communities. I think we discussed about this. It's everyone here it's mostly transient. People come here either for school and then or for work. So we don't have the tiny kind of or like large community like you'd have in New York or you'd have in Detroit or Boston, but they're very helpful. So when I learned there were Albanians, in the World Bank, that was like my first line of contact, and they helped me out a lot. With as much as you can. You still have to do your own work, right? Like there is no nepotism here, but as long as you're good and and you get, because everyone has a certain amounts of social capital, and they will use it wisely, right, including Albanians. So I always appreciated that, and that was very helpful for me to get that to get a bit of a confidence boost, and then actual real kind of help.
Amazing.
What's really interesting is that a lot of Albanians, people may not know this, grew up in Albania thinking about the international scene a lot, and in Kosovo and Kosovo as well, because of how important international decision making has been to the history of our country. So to pursue diplomacy or to pursue a field that's more politically or economically inclined at the international level is something a subset of Albanians have a very strong culture in, and Albanians are known as being quite good in understanding diplomats. So for you to go into that scene with this background that you had, were you presented more so there as like that international person in an international scene, or was your background really important to the work that you did?
I think it was a combination of both. I think definitely having throughout like my academic journey up to like my job, I had lived in, 3 or 4 countries and coming from our own country as well. So I was quite acquainted. And then combined with my training and my love for history and, actually studying international relations and getting a degree in IER and diplomacy in college, it just like had equipped me. So I had personal kind of experiences by living in different countries, always in international schools. So I had that training on me. And then I also had the academic training. So to be frank, it was a very easy kind of smooth transition. It was like, when I first started working, I had the feeling of like, okay, you've been trained for this your whole life. Now apply those, what you've learned. And then of course, yeah, you have to, be curious at all times, right? And then once you're curious and you're relatively passionate about what you do, and it's done.
Yeah.
It's great.
And the World Bank is one of what many social scientists consider the holy trinity of international organizations. So you have the IMF, the World Bank, and the UN, and people grow up, reading about them, hearing about them. But what it's like to actually work there, like what is it like day in and day out to work in an institution like that? Do you just have your office? Do you communicate with
Yeah.
people? What are the challenges that you experience?
Yeah. So, well, I think in the beginning, yes, it was challenging because it was very competitive, and it's a 70-year-old kind of organization that moves slow sometimes and is very bureaucratic, right? And you're just a small part of this large machine. And as you well know, the World Bank has the headquarters here in DC, which I've been working at for since I joined. So I've always been in the headquarters. So always kind of going to the office every day. Well, not so much now during post-COVID, but then we also have field offices, right? So basically our day-to-day involves just communicating a lot with our clients on the field. So our clients are our governments of the countries we're interacting and we're investing, and then with our local office and local staff there, right? So it's a combination. So the day-to-day basically is, especially I work mostly on Eastern Europe and Western Balkans. I have to my typical day starts, pretty early to use that window due to time difference to have meetings with our other clients or with our colleagues in the field, and then the rest of the day is mostly just working on my projects, and most of it is at project management at this stage of my career. Just to be a bit more research, as I started off, as a fresh grad, but now I just do mostly project management for 2 or 3 projects, especially Albania, Kosovo, and Romania, which are like my 3 countries. And I have a regional project on justice sector reform. So that's kind of like my day to day. And then maybe every other month, I take a 2-3 like week trip, which is basically now we're combining. So for my different projects, when we go, because we now mostly do implementation and supervision of these big projects, then I travel and I hit multiple countries during the same trip because it's more efficient that way, which is what happened, in the past couple of weeks that I just got back from.
So what type of projects does the World Bank actually like fund, or what is it? What is its main priority?
The model where our basically we have this we call like the twin goals, so kind of ending poverty and sharing prosperity. So usually it's poverty eradication is our most immediate kind of like or the core of our work, as an international development organization. And then also then boosting prosperity, right? So we want countries not only to escape poverty but also to thrive, right? So these are our main goals, and there's 2 modalities we do this. We do, capacity building, analytical work, so like investing in country systems. But we are a bank at the end of the day, so we do a lot of like financing. But A lot of it comes in terms of projects that we build and we prepare with the client countries, and then we do implementation and supervision. But the loans that the World Bank gives are like very soft terms, easy maturity. So it's basically for countries that cannot find access into international capital markets. The World Bank helps them, and then once they kind of get their credit rating up, then they can kind of go hit the capital markets as well.
Yeah, because I was just going to ask, how does the World Bank pick and choose who it helps? Because there's probably a lot of countries that need financial help. And
of course, yeah.
How does it choose?
Yeah, I mean, we again, it's part of our mandate. We are a member, in multilateral. So every country that's part of the World Bank, which is 150 plus countries, almost all countries in the world are part of the World Bank. Everyone contributes to its budget. Some countries contribute the largest. So, for example, like the U.S., where we are housed in, contributes about like 17% of the World Bank budget. And then the country second to it, I think it's like Germany or Japan with like 2%, right? So it's a big gap in funding, and let's see how that works. Yeah, and that's why then the World Bank, then the US always picks the World Bank president, right? So it comes with its benefits, and not that it dictates our policy, but I think that's an advantage that happens. The World Bank is not very controversial, probably like other organizations, like maybe like the IMF. Like we're mostly, we're out there to just help rebuild countries and build capacities, and we work in sectors, So we are not very controversial kind of organization. But then when it comes to like picking projects, it's a whole process. Basically, it's our client countries. They have conversations with our local offices, right? And then a need for a certain kind of support gets channeled into our offices, and that comes into the headquarters, and then we assess what the needs are, and then we build a project based on what those assessments tell us about the specific project, the specific needs of the country. And then, we build the project, and then we take it to the World Bank board, and then the board approves it or not based on the need, and also based on the country's kind of capacity to kind of, pay back the debt, or how much space do they have for more financial borrowing, right? So there are countries that, because you cannot sustain yourself in debt, right? And then there are grants and stuff, but eventually you have to become a productive country, and that you shouldn't be reliant on just debt or like foreign aid or even just like capacity building or by the international organizations. At the end of the day, you have to build your own systems and just carry on yourself and have sustainable development. So that's another key thing for us. Everything has to compute somehow to the sustainable development of a country.
On that point that you mentioned, which is really interesting, because Ermal and I, we pursued similar fields in the academic world, and we went to school in the same neighborhood, different times. So he was at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins, and I was Master of Science in Foreign Service at Georgetown. So I understand the international world and where he's coming from, but I can also hear my professors in my head being like, what do you mean the World Bank is not controversial? It's very controversial. And financing and giving.
My boss will see this, I gotta be nice.
I want to hear your take on it. And the idea is this: we've heard of stories from the Grameen Bank, we've heard of stories from the IMF, and maybe even some reputably so from the World Bank, about countries getting so in debt and not having the ability to pay that, they end up paying back in terms of influence they have to accept from these international institutions that many would argue have a certain dominance in the world and have a certain expectation of being or social systems or political systems for countries abroad. Do you see that as being the case, or is that not a practical tale that actually happens?
I mean, I get it, we have protesters outside of our doors once in a while, but I just look at it like, that expression in our world, you cannot move money around in international development unless it's with a leaky bucket. There will be losses, right? But the way I see it, when I hear criticism like this, is the world better off with or without, our interventions? And it's like, I know there are conspiracies, and of course, there are things that actually are not done well. Of course, there are problems in our, in the way we handle business, but that's with any organization ever, right? I don't think we're uniquely, bad contributors to, some of those, malpractices, I just being inside the organization for so long and being surrounded by people that I'm surrounded with, like everyone has a sense of mission and wants to do good. I have a lot of like bright colleagues who pretty sure if they wanted to, they could have, yeah, joined a private bank or a consulting firm and make more money and stuff. But I think people have a strong sense of attachment to the mission of the World Bank, and then there's no bad intentions. There might be some unintended, negative consequences. But trust me, we take approximately a year and a half to prepare a project, and the level of scrutiny that we have to go through, and assessment and feasibility studies to measure the impact or in the environment, socially into a country, social cohesion. There's so many layers we go to that by the time that this project gets approved and goes to the board, we've been engaging with all different parts of stakeholders that would be affected negatively, I guess, or positively by the project, that there are no surprises, right? Like the scrutiny level, and then it has to be that there's so many approval processes, and that's why we take so long, because we, even if there is one bad consequence of our engagement, that's still one too many, right? And I was just reading about this. We have, for all of our World Bank projects, there is an online kind of open source system called the grievance, it's like a grievance redressal mechanism. So basically, any citizen, entity, firm in any country that will be somehow affected by a World Bank investment, construction, and whatnot, they can use the system and then just have their issue addressed. And I just heard something about how this investment we made, there was like one person that apparently their house was affected somehow, and I think the project was about, like, with the measures we went to just address that was impressive, right? So, like, we don't turn on any blind eyes on, like, we're there for the people first. Like, our client are the people, not the governments, right?
So you're constantly perfecting your process, is what I
Yes,
hear, and you're very careful towards the feedback and the scrutiny that you receive to amend your process in the way that
100%.
benefits the public that's receiving that project. That's really interesting to hear from your end too, and you did a good job explaining it. I want to hear, how do smaller states have influence in such a large mechanism? An institution like the World Bank, we know how the US, well, you explained a bit about influence through funding, but what other forms of influence exist in the World Bank?
I mean, how can I say this politely? I don't think there is. I don't. The World Bank, our member countries. I don't think there is a fight for influence unless it's for the big players. Board members, right? Governors. Usually, as a small country, you just want to be part of the club, and then want to get as much help as possible by being, part of this club, right? There is no fight for power between small countries. It's not like the UN, where there's a rotating at the council. So I don't think it's a place to kind of project power, or it's like or at least I never see it as well. And I don't see it from client governments as a venue to project power. It's not foreign policy. It's not the UN Security Council. So yeah, I guess that'll be my answer.
Well, in between the three countries that you're working, because you said Albania, Kosovo, and Romania.
Yeah.
Like, what is an example of something successful that you guys have funded recently, or a certain project, or what is something that's become successful from you guys?
Yes. Well, so for Albania, that I've been engaged for 6-7 years now. That government portal, e-Albania, you've probably heard of it. So that the digital revolution that Albania has kind of gone through is pretty impressive. It's probably one of the 20 most digitalized countries in the world now. So this website, e-Albania, and other things that come with it have been supported by the World Bank from its inception, right? So we basically helped close down all these kind of government kind of portals, government service windows in random institutions. So let me give you an example, right? In Albania now, you can apply for a driving license, and you can probably just apply online. And back in the day, the way I can relate that to the US, right? When you want to apply for a driving license or get a renewal, like in the DMV, you have to go to like 7 different institutions and get your paperwork and print it out. And there will always be one document missing, or that's wrong. So you're going to have to make like 3 trips and wait in line. In Albania now, that power dynamic has shifted. Now it's the government that works for you, right? So now we've invested so much in like back office and re-engineering that now with all these digitalized systems, like every institutions now have their very advanced systems, and they speak to each other in real time. So then the system itself, like this government portal, will pull out all the different information. So like a birth certificate, a residence, proof of residence, a proof of lack of whatever investigation or criminality. The system does this for you. The moment you apply online, the system does this all for you and pulls it in real time. And you can do basically almost everything that's not physical, but from the comfort of your home or your phone, right? So that's impressive. Imagine how much time and time you've saved, and saving time means saving money nowadays. You probably will have to go there once for a test, right? But for the most part, everything will be this. It's going to become that advanced. Like there are systems there are, for example, services that you can get in real time. So you can apply for a birth certificate or a certificate, or like of anything tax related, right? And then whatever document that you'd get, that you'd have needed to go in different offices, right, and wait in line. Remember those lines, small window, people shouting, because Albanians, we're not good at lines. In the US, yes. When I see people here were lining up at the bus station, based on who went there first. And then I just think about what happened in Albania.
I agree with you, because whenever I see people like lining up to enter a restaurant, even if I have a reservation, I just won't go. Like it's a complete no, like a cancel for me. I think it's my Albanian nature, but I have to learn to accept lines.
Be patient. Yeah, no. So that's kind of one example of it. So, and a lot of these documents have legal value. You can print it or show it, and that will have legal value. And related to that is what we did is that we brought all of these services because not everyone has the ability to apply online, right? If you're old, if you're uneducated. So then we built this, what we call integrated service centers. So like example, we built like these buildings where you brought 50 institutions together, from police services, judicial services, tax, civil services. So you brought all this together, and every citizen would go into this new modern building with queue numbers and just really have a much pleasant experience. And now the civil servant on the other side, it's their duty to help you find the documents, help you apply for it, and then provide you with a service. So it's a complete revolution. And now the second project now that we started in Kosovo, we just launched, is very similar to that. It's basically just replicating, not just from Albania, but in other successful countries, or just replicating this experience of, modernizing governments. And for me, I feel lucky and a bit, I feel that I made the good move to transition into this line of work, because it's, I'm still young, and I think I do have a good kind of knack for technology, and I think I'm still working on government reform, but through their lens of kind of technology integration. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Rock, I'm gonna hand it back over to you before I go into a couple different questions for Ermal.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I also wanted to understand as well, like when a pandemic or like a situation, like let's say a crisis happens. So how are you guys affected with that? Or how are you guys use your power in a way to help that country out?
Yes. So we do work a lot on like kind of disaster and risk management, and responding to natural disasters. It's probably like so just like climate change kind of related consequences in different countries. So the World Bank has a strong mandate on that, and each project that we get ourselves involved in, has an element of kind of just how does it contribute to alleviating kind of climate change negative consequences in time. So, but then also we do like emergency relief and response. So not just natural disasters, but also like war as well. So in Romania, I'm sorry, in Ukraine, we've been quite involved, since the war started, because when there is a war, it's very important that you have as functional as you can, as a functional government as you can, right? And so us, that's what we do. We invested in kind of keeping the government as functional as possible. It's not the most sexy way to contribute, but for us it is like keeping government systems together, because when you have functional government, it serves its citizens better, right? And then also we provide a lot of grants and like just emergency relief, and we of course we work a lot in health and pandemics and all over the world, and because again, remember, the World Bank, its primary kind of clients are poor countries, right? Especially what we call the FCV states, like fragile and conflict affected states. That's our kind of like our main focus on, and there are different kind of financing mechanisms that apply for these countries, because they need faster response, they need faster relief, they need looser terms, right, to kind of help them out, and that's what we've been doing. That's why I haven't worked in many FCV states, but I know that that's a very big part of our mandate, to just quickly respond and support countries to like not get, or to like just alleviate the immediate effects of a natural disasters or crisis.
And have you seen positive change in Albania and Kosovo in terms of economy since working?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's I don't think it'd be awfully arrogant of myself to think, to kind of connect, our the development in these countries with our interventions. I know that and this one experience, we are quite liked, from the governments in both countries. We see it, I think someone calls us, I think the Albanian Prime Minister called us, we do development with the heart, right? So we are because we work in many sectors, we work in health, we work in infrastructure, we work in agriculture a lot. So we try to contribute as much as I can, as we can. But again, a lot of it has to be like, there has to be a formula where our contribution is also matched by the willingness of the governments to reform, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not very easy, right? Because we know how, a lot of governments work, especially in our countries, because we used to be very poor, and it's hard to find the right, always find the right competent people. But I see it in terms of the quality of governance has gotten better, right? So we have, very, like, the people that I work with in both countries are brilliant. A lot of them, educated abroad, that came back, young people, very bright, very fresh. Like it's not that we go there with an arrogance, that we're the World Bank, we tell you what to do. It's no, they match you like you have no idea. And like, it's a good challenge for me as well, because I get to see how the government works from the inside. And again, it's a long road ahead, right? For our countries. I mean, there was hope. We are in the right path. We have eyes towards, EU integration, and I think that's always great. Like there is no temptation to move east, or to like we have a clear path, and the better we do, the more access we'll have to kind of EU accession funding, and that's the case for both governments.
That's a
And
good
I think,
school of thought.
yeah.
That's a very good school of thought you're representing here. And that's the thing. There's a lot of different schools of thoughts, and it's good to see how they all play out in reality, because Albania is a place, and Kosovo, that is attracting a lot of foreign investment, whether it be from China, whether it be from the Middle East, whether it be from the rest of Europe or from the US. So it's interesting to see how these players will all kind of play out in the end, and what Albania will decide it wants to do. It's the time for Albania to kind of like establish its own path and identity moving forward. So I'm glad that you guys focused on that, and you see political and social will as part of your process. Now, I have two other questions that are interesting before we go into a round of questions about you and your attachment to Albania. So for those that are interested in kind of pursuing this field, whether it be the UN, IMF, or World Bank, what do they have to do if they're in Albania or Romania and they're not in America? Do you have to be in the US to apply for a position like this?
No, we have positions that are open. These are kind of international postings, so anyone usually can apply from anywhere. So that will not stop you. It's a bit harder, right? Unless you have like very specific skills that allow you. So we're talking about position here in the US, right? Like at the
Sure, like
headquarters.
working
Yeah.
at HQ, like you
Yeah,
are.
yeah, working at you. Yeah, I think that if you have a specific combination of talents that will make you as unique as possible, then you can apply and you can get the job. And like that, there's so many postings. I mean, it's a large organization. It's like having, as I always say, it's like having 100 companies in one, right? Because like the variety of work that we do, the variety of countries, the variety of regions, it's just insane, right? Of course, it's hard. I mean, for a lot of these positions there are meant for someone who is a contractor that has worked at the World Bank, and then it's open up to, they open up a new position for them. But yes, and there are, and especially if you are, I think below 32 years old, the World Bank has two different programs. Has like a junior associate program. I think that's if you're below 28. So you just need a master's degree for that, I believe. And then you can apply to this 2-3 year program, and those are probably, this is one of the programs that channels in a lot of foreign kind of people who live abroad. And second, it's what's the World Bank's most reputable kind of program. It's called the Young Professionals Program. And the Young Professionals Program, and I think I know one or two Albanians. Maybe one Albanian who is, I think he finished Georgetown as well, because you are the better school.
I mean, we don't say that, but I guess you
But
do.
that's the point. It's because you don't say it that it kills us,
No, that's great. That's good to know the path that people have and how to pursue it
The
too.
moment you say that, I'd be like, no. So yeah, that's the Young Professionals Program. It's open to anyone. It's also, a lot of people need PhDs. I think my friend Bledi, he got a PhD in econ from Georgetown as well. So like those two are, and then there is an internship program, it's all year paid internship program. So I'm guessing you're asking for the younger audience, I guess, that want to get into the World Bank. That is the best way to just get involved with the World Bank. So these programs, they're completely unaffected by you having worked before, connections, whatever. Not now, if you live in the US, then the best way, which is what I did as well, was to start as a consultant. So that's like doing part-time work. It's not the best because you're not full staff, so you don't have a lot of the benefits, but it's a quick way to get in. They'll sponsor you a G4 visa, which is a diplomatic visa, and it gets your foot in the door, and then you prove yourself, like in any organization, which is, honestly, it's a great way, because to get a long-term contract, staff position at an organization with a lot of benefit and stuff, I think it's fair that you need to prove yourself first. So this is one way to do it. The problem with that is that you can get stuck in there for a long time. So, and I don't know, not benefits, not recognized really well, or given credit for your work, because you're just in an unprotected position. But it's actually really quick, because if you have a specific skill set, you can just join a team for a specific task for like 20 days, and then you're just getting right away. So these are the ways, right? And
That's
then
cool.
and yeah, and then of course, all in our local offices, in field offices, they also have postings as well. So I mean, the best way to go about this is, you go into the World Bank job postings website, and then you'll see all the positions there, and it's pretty fair organization, right? I mean,
So once you get into the World Bank, what we're hearing through the Young Professionals Program, then you have to talk to Ermal, because he'll give you career advice about how to advance the next position and not stay in place. Got it. Secondly,
You
we
said
wanted
it.
to ask, in the next couple of minutes that we have about like 5 minutes left in the podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned so much. I know those that are following us have learned so much from your Ermal. So just thank you for being a breath of knowledge for everyone who's following. I wanted to ask, what's next for you? Do you see yourself in this field for the foreseeable future, or do you want to use this knowledge and then build something else that can be helpful as well?
Yes, that's a good question. I definitely will be hopeful. Well, hopefully, I will want to stay in the same organization until I get my next kind of career upgrade or promotion within the organization. So just to become a senior person. Once I do that, because I think that would be a good test to myself, right? And I feel like I would feel accomplished after that to then move on, right? Because I'd feel like, okay, I kind of maximize my potential.
You reach
And
the
then,
pinnacle of success in that organization.
yeah, and then there is upper, there is management, and there is, it never ends, right? I mean, when I think we have like 49 vice presidents, so I think there is levels and levels, in an organization. But then at that point, it becomes about like, so once I know that I can qualify for, to move into leadership and, upper management, then I can make the decision. If it doesn't work out, usually the way it works is that you probably should step out of the organization or take a field position somewhere difficult, prove yourself, either in a field position or in the private sector, or join, a government. You do that, because it's a mutually beneficial kind of move, right? So I can bring something new, all of these years of experience to my new organization or job. And then also, whilst there, I can just try a new environment, test myself out, how I operate in a place that's not the place that I've been for a long time. You make that move, then you decide, oh, then I can probably come back because I will have this new perspective. And that usually works out better, because once you come back with, if I, let's say if I went back home and, I was took a government position for a while, because I've been on the other side of the government for so long that I know how the inner workings of it. So that's why I do that for a while and prove myself in a position of, high management or political kind of influence, in a country, or just work in another organization or private sector organization. Then actually you're quite welcome back, and most likely with a promotion, because then you'll bring all these other perspectives, right? At the end of the day, it's always about kind of bringing a fresh perspective to your position. So I am not thinking very far, to be honest with you, because I have to align it with my personal goals as well. So in the next 5 years, I think I will be staying where I am. Maybe move within the organization, so probably work more in another region, maybe Latin America, we'll see. Or but definitely just gonna be staying here. That's the goal. And I have a lot of projects I'm involved with that I want to see them through, at least this project in Kosovo.
Okay, that's great. Well, with that, on that note, we're going to understand how Albanian you really are.
Right. Hit me.
We're going to start out. We know you're from Korça, so you don't have to give us a Korça specific answer to this question, but what is your favorite Albanian dish, or top 2 favorites? Because I know it's hard.
Oh, that's unfair. Because part of me deep down subconsciously, I feel like I chose to work in Albania and Kosovo because I can go often and eat the food. Right? I mean, I just love all of the meats, because everything is so fresh, So if I get some Albanian lamb chops, but I was just there now, and my mom made me like this burek, right? And then I was there, and she's making it, and then she goes, "Take half of it to the airport," So like there I am at the airport, I'm there sitting in the lounge, and there's like, and then I go ask for some yogurt or some dal, and the guy is like, "What are you doing here, buddy? Like, you look like you don't need to bring food from home, I'm like, it's my mother's hand. So I think that would be, and just in Albania now, as you might know, there is all this culture of this agrotourism places, right? Like this place like Mirza Zanav and all those places. I mean, I was just there to one. It's called Ferma Inchin, just outside of Tirana. And then the way they present like the different meats, and they just came up, it's just. And also, I like turshi a lot. So, like anything
Can you
pickled,
explain
My
to
mom
people who don't speak Albanian what is turshi?
Well, turshi is like pickled veggies. So there is not much of a variety in the US, even if you go to the store. But there are some places, like I guess that in Brooklyn, like some of these Albanian places, Albanian stores, and I think they have shipped them from Albania or something. So anything that's pickled, pickled lacquer or pickled.
I like spezat mushroom.
I mean, I'm telling you this. So that's an unfair question. Like I will talk about this before.
We can have another episode about cuisine.
Yeah.
Done. Another episode just about food. Well, that's cool then. So I know there's so many places in Albania that you mentioned are so much fun to go to and see, whether it be agritourism or your own home city of Korcha, known for culture, music, and just a good environment for people, where do you like to go to enjoy yourself on vacation in Albania?
Yeah, I mean, because my time is usually limited, so I usually just stay at home, you're right? And then Korcha is just so beautiful. There's been like the place was in the past 5 6 years has been just gotten like a crazy upgrade, and I think it's the most visited city in Albania, by Albanians, I mean. And like there's so many new cute like restaurants, and they've brought back this tradition of like serenata corciare, and stuff. And I just saw like the other day this beautiful video of like it was snowing outside, and then it's all guys singing, and it's just like if you go to Albania, I think you definitely need a weekend course, right? Because then now, especially if it snows, the whole of Tirana just flocks into Korcha, right? Because you can go to Vaskopoja, you can go to Darda, where there's a ski resort, so you get to experience the mountains, right? And then you get to like just spend time in the city and enjoy the food and the tradition, as there's lots of pride in the cultural kind of dimensions and values of the city. And then of course then in the summer we just go down in the south, and that will never get old. I mean, literally, why go to anywhere ever for a beach vacation rather than Albania? I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yeah. And Rock, I'll hand it over to you for our other question.
Yeah, and in terms of Albanian, who's been an Albanian role model, or anybody you've ever looked into, or looked up to, that's kind of helped you shape who you've become as a person? You have any certain Albanian role models?
Yeah, well, they're mostly dead, So, but I have a special connection to Faik Konica, right? Because Faik Konica, he was a single-handedly established the U.S. Albanian kind of relations. He was the first Albanian ambassador to the U.S. There was a point where he was given the option to either become prime minister back in the 20s, or become a minister, as I call them, for the Albanian U.S. relations, and he chose to become to live in the U.S. And he spent, I think, 15 years at this hotel called the Mayflower, which I walk by almost every day. So, and if you read his bios, there's a really good one by Ilir Economy, the journalist, and he gives a very detailed description of his life here and how much he valued the U.S. Albanian connection. That it just like how do I say this in a way that's not that doesn't come off as arrogant, but in a way I feel like I'm like living through his footsteps, right? Because he's like, it's 100 years later, but he's like, I'm in a way like living his life. He's been in diplomatic circles here, very proud Albanian. He invested so much to kind of just improve the image of the country, to the point of like overspending. I think I read a stat that when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he was using like 20% of the then Albania's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the 20% of the budget, just to kind of live in a fancy suite, in the Mayflower, 2 suites, dress expensively, have people
He
over.
was definitely Albanian. I think that's where the culture started.
Yeah. No, but see the point, right? Because we were a very poor country, right? And then he wanted to invest in this relation, and he wanted to elevate our image, right? That, basically telling, foreign diplomats and dignitaries, like, listen, we may be poor, but we're not that poor, and we have high aspirations.
We're not poor at heart. He was saying, don't look at my circumstances now. I'm not existing in the 2D. I exist in the 3D and the 4D. So he was manifesting for the rest to be able to be in that space. Love it. That's really cool.
He should have invested that money in like buying a proper residence instead of spending it on rent at the Mayflower.
Yeah, also like 20+% of budget could have fed some people back home, but we'll talk about that at a later point.
Well, he was a fancy man.
Was a fancy man. Okay, Ermal, we have really enjoyed this conversation with you, and I'm sure we could go on for hours about Albanian cuisine, Albanian development, and just your idea for a better Albania in the future. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you for sharing your story, and for the countless people that you're going to inspire through sharing what you've been through, your journey, and what it's like to work at a place that has such a high reputation, is doing such good work, and is the pinnacle of development in the world. Like quite literally, the World Bank is the organization for development that we all learn about. So thank you so much for that.
Well, it's been my honor. Again, I could do this all day with you guys. You're very, very pleasant, and you know, I love the questions. It's like you've done your homework or something. No, I appreciate you guys. I'm a big fan of the both of you, and I look forward to, you know, maybe sitting down in person sometimes. You know, because I go to New York quite often, so maybe once I'm there, and if you're there, we can meet up. And in any other way that I can help or support somehow, you just please let me know. It would be my pleasure.
I just set up my meeting with Albin Kurti one day.
Sure, sure.
I'm
There
just
you
kidding,
go.
but
Gotcha.
one day we'll be in Kosovo together and in Albania together, man. Love to meet you sometime as well. So thank you.
Same here, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and catch us next time on another episode of DGXM Podcast.